Madam Mayor, turning it over to you.
Thank you very much. And I'll be calling the joint meeting of the Glendale City Council and the Glendale Housing Authority for November 16th, 2021. Call to order at 2:08 to help slow the transmission of COVID-19 and protect the health and safety of the community. City Council, as well as board and commission meetings, will continue to be closed to the public for in-person attendance. You are encouraged to watch and participate from the safety of your homes to practice social distancing. Meetings are broadcast live on Glendale TV, viewable on Spectrum Cable Channel 6 and AT&T UVerse Channel 99. You can also live stream them in high definition on the city's webpage, glendaleca.gov/live, on youtube.com/myglendale, and on Apple TV, Roku, and Amazon Fire devices using a free app called ScreenWeave and choosing Glendale TV for the menu. For public comments and questions during this meeting, please call 818-937-8100. Public comments on a specific agenda item will be taken when that agenda item is discussed. Thank you. And with that, may we have roll call?
Councilmember Agajanian. Councilmember Agajanian.
Present.
Brotman.
Here.
Kasakian.
Here.
Najarian.
Here.
Mayor Devine.
Here. And for housing?
Authority Member Agajanian.
Present.
Agajanian.
Present.
Brotman.
Here.
Devine.
Here.
Here.
Najarian.
Here.
Parazian.
Here.
And Chair Kasakian.
Here.
And your report, please.
The agenda for the Tuesday, November 16, 2021 joint public meeting of the City Council and the Housing Authority was posted on November 10th, 2021 on the bulletin board outside City Hall.
Thank you. And what's the next item, please?
Number one would be Community Services and Parks regarding funding recommendations by the Glendale Continuum of Care Board for the round one fiscal year 2021 carryover youth set aside funds and round two fiscal year 21-22 of the Homeless Housing Assistance and Prevention Program funding allocation. A, City Council motion approving the Glendale Continuum of Care Board recommendation of the final funding allocations regarding the Homeless Housing Assistance and Prevention Program round one fiscal year 2020 and 2021, and round two fiscal year 2021 and 2022 in the amount of $158,530, authorized by AB 83, Committee on Budget Chapter 15, status of 2020, and administrated by the Homeless Coordinating and Financing Council of the Business, Consumer Services, and Housing Agency.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Galanian?
Yes, good afternoon. Mayor Devine, members City Council, Housing Chair Authority Kasakian, members of the Housing Authority. I'm just going to turn this item over to Arsene Sayan, our Senior Administrative Analyst in Community Service and Parks Department, for a brief presentation, at the end of which we'll be seeking direction on the recommendations that presented to you. Arsene.
Thank you, Mr. Galanian. Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, Chair Kasakian, members of the Council and Housing Authority. I'm here today to provide a brief presentation on the Homeless Housing Assistance and Prevention HAP program funds. Oop. Sorry, if I could get this to turn on.
Try one more time.
One more time?
Nope.
Sorry, do you want to?
I'll take it over. Just tell
Oh,
me when
okay.
you want me
Thank
to
you so
finish.
much. So I'm here today to request the City Council's and Housing Authority's approval of the HAP Round 1 Carryover Youth Set-Aside Funding recommendations made by our Continuum of Care Board for fiscal year 2021-2022, and also our HAP Round 2 funding recommendations also made by our COC Board for this fiscal year. HAP funds are state funds that are awarded by the California Homeless Coordinating and Financing Council within the Business, Consumer Services, and Housing Agency. This council was established back in 2017 to provide oversight of the Housing First guidelines and also to plan and provide resources for cities within the state of California to help end and prevent homelessness. Some of the eligible activities the funding is available for is rental assistance and rapid rehousing. This is short-term, medium-term, long-term rental assistance programs for those who are experiencing homelessness. Can range anywhere from 3 months to 36 months. It is a temporary rental assistance program. Funding can also be utilized for outreach coordination services, including employment. So we could utilize funding for our existing outreach team to expand our services to the community. There is a 8% youth set aside that is required for our city as part of this funding. 8% of the funds have to be used to expand homeless services for our youth population in Glendale. Of course, landlord incentives, funding can be used to provide incentives to our property owners in Glendale to encourage participation and buy-in. And of course, funding can also be utilized for prevention and shelter diversion to permanent housing. And prevention programs like the one we currently have through our Catholic Charities, our agency, is for those who are on the verge of becoming homeless. We would be able to utilize those funds to keep them housed. And for the newly homeless population, we would be able to quickly divert them out into some type of housing program, permanent housing program. The HAP Round 2 RFP, the request for proposal was issued in May of 2021. The total funding available to our applicants was around $260,000. $200,000 of that was to be utilized for rental assistance and rapid rehousing. There was a youth set-aside of $20,000 during HAP Round 2. However, during HAP Round 1, we had about $40,000 that was to be used for youth set-aside, and agencies did not claim this amount during our RFP process. This was during 2020 year. So in total, we had about $60,000 of available funds that were available for youth set-aside. We also have $12,500 dedicated for system support for HMIS, our Homeless Management Information System. This is to support our staff that is designated to help our Homeless Management Information Systems analysts that we have in-house. There's also administrative funds in the amount of $17,500 that's also kept in-house and is used to help fund the project manager who oversees this project within the city. The funding recommendations by the Glendale COC board. So we had a total of 3 agencies that applied for the funds. We had the Glendale Youth Alliance, GYA. They have requested $60,000. Again, $40,000 of that was from HAP Round 1. They will be providing assistance to up to 10 youth in the city of Glendale with hotel vouchers, youth ages 12 to 24, and this will be up to 30 nights. We also have Door of Hope, which is an existing agency within our COC. They operate the Glendale Door of Hope Transitional Housing Program. They will utilize $25,000 to help our families under the Rapid Rehousing Program. And lastly, we do have a new agency that is not new, of course, to our city, but new to HAP funds, the Adventist Health Glendale Foundation. They have requested $73,530 to expand the outreach services here in Glendale. They will have a designated staff to help our outreach team provide mobile outreach, which is something that has not been done before. So during pre and post discharge of our clients, they're going to be able to connect our clients to a clinician to make sure that our clients get the follow-up services that they need in order to maintain their housing. So that's going to be something new that we're going to be implementing this year. I also provided some information for HAP Round 1 in case you would like some information. We received a total of $750,000 in HAP funding. During HAP Round 1, we received around $500,000, of which 3 agencies received funds, Essentia, Family Promise, and ARS. We also set aside $60,000 to support our staff. So a total of $460,000. As you can see, the youth set aside of $40,000. We did not have an agency apply for those funds, so that has been carried over to Round 2. And for round two, we have a total of $188,530 that will be allocated for the HAP program. And I'll be happy to, this concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Yes, I have question.
Thank you.
Madam.
Councilmember Agajanian, go ahead.
Okay, but we said the money which was allocated was 200,000. You have shown the 158,000. Where that difference goes? There is 42,000 of gap between that 158,000 and the 200,000 which was allocated.
Madam Mayor, Councilmember
Is it
Agajanian.
clear what I'm asking?
The funding summary that you have, Exhibit 1, it only includes funding that we received during HAP Round 2, the $250,000. So that does not include funding that was received during HAP Round 1, the $40,000
Right.
that was the youth set aside. So yes, you are correct. $188,350 includes the $40,000 that we carried over from HAP Round 1. However, your funding summary, I believe, does not include that $40,000. You're right. It does indicate less than that.
Okay.
Is that? And then also, one thing I do want to mention is we received $250,000. However, we will only be contracting out $158,350 for those three agencies. So there is a balance of $101,000 remaining during HAP Round 2. But we're not going to be issuing another RFP this year because we do want to wait until we have fully exhausted the current funding that's available from other funding sources like the CARES Act funding that we received this year through ESGCV, the CARES Act, and the COC program. So the remaining $101,000 will be allocated at a later time when HAP Round 3 comes out next year, June of 2022. So we will have a total a little over $430,000 to RFP out next year.
Okay, I have one more question, I'm sorry. We give vouchers to, let's say, to homeless people. And we don't go and check whether they're residing where they're supposed to be in a house or hotel. Who checks that? Because some of the homeless people, they may take it, they say, okay, I will stay in this hotel or in this unit, but then they don't like to be in an enclosed place. They want to be outside. Who goes and check that where they go or whether they're using that unit or not?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Agajanian, we actually do provide oversight of all of the clients that we house in our COC programs. For example, the Glendale Youth Alliance, when they issue the hotel motel vouchers to their clients, they also provide case management services at the same time. So they do check in with the clients depending on the need. If we have a vulnerable client who's been on our streets for years, sometimes there's weekly follow-up, sometimes there's daily follow-up. However, we do check to make sure that the clients are housed or they're staying at the hotel motels that we work with. And as far as the funding, we don't actually directly pay our clients. We make sure that we pay our property owners or the hotel ourselves. So that payment goes directly to them, not to the clients.
No, again, let's say we check that this homeless person stays in the room or wherever they are supposed to be, or let's say the organizations such as Sensi and others are checking that.
I see. The service providers are actually responsible for providing that oversight. So each agency that receives the funds, they have a case manager that's assigned to work with the clients. So it is their responsibility to also follow up with the clients and check. However, I do have to say we do have some clients in our programs that are chronically homeless, and we have come across a situation where we do have a client that is housed. However, we see them on the street some nights.
Right.
Because it is, a lot of our clients, believe it or not, they feel safer sleeping on the street because they've been out on the street for so long. That is all they know. That's what they're used to. So that's where the case management comes in. We actually have one situation that we're currently dealing with where we do see the client on the street. So we are consistently working with her to get her to feel safe to go back into her unit. It is going to take some time with some of our clients, and you're right, we do see that a lot of our clients don't stay in their units the way we would want them to, but it's a work in progress. So that's where the case management needs to come in, the ongoing case management services. And one of the projects, Glendale Adventist, that's something that they're really focusing on, is before they discharge the client, they want to make sure that our clients are connected to a clinician through their behavioral unit, to make sure there's the follow-up services. So as soon as the client enters into their unit, there has to be that ongoing follow-up to make sure that they stay there.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I have,
Councilmember Brotman.
yeah, I have a few questions. Thanks for your report. Well, let me start with this. When is the next homeless count?
All right. I'm happy, Councilmember Broadman, I'm happy to say our next homeless count will be on January 25th. And this year, we are planning on having a sheltered and a unsheltered count. We couldn't have one last year because of the pandemic, so we only conducted a sheltered count. But this year, we plan on having both. So it'll be on January 25th.
Okay. And just remind us, if you would, the last count, how many did we have?
Last count, Councilmember Broadman, I want to say 88 sheltered clients, since we didn't have the unsheltered. I believe the year before, don't quote me on it, I'll have to check, but I believe we had 165.
Yes.
Of both
Yes.
both sheltered and unsheltered?
No, just 165 was the unsheltered population, I believe. I'll have to look at the numbers. I'm
Okay.
sorry, I can't remember off the top
Okay,
of my
sorry.
head.
Yeah.
But I'll be happy to look at that and get back.
Okay.
166.
165,
Okay.
yes.
I have a question. The other question, well, I have a few more. Now, winter shelter, are we still taking people to somewhere out in the valley? I'm not sure where it is.
Yes. Councilmember Broadman, this year, I've actually been checking, and I don't see Pacoima operating their winter shelter program. The city of Glendale, as you know, did host the winter shelter for a couple of years. We no
Yeah.
longer do that here in our city, but we are checking to see when that program will be in effect and when they plan on. Pacoima is our location, actually Silmar. And we will be happy to update you as soon as that program is up and running.
Okay, so we right now, we don't have any arrangement in place for the winter. I mean, we're in mid-November. I know it doesn't feel like winter, it's been so hot, but it's coming. So we don't have any plans right now?
Not at this time, but we are looking into it, and you are right, the winter months are coming, so we are trying to so through our EHV program, we're really trying to prioritize our unsheltered population. We have approximately 65 referrals already for our EHV, and it's mainly working with the unsheltered population to get as many people housed as possible. But we are looking at that, and we are working with LASA regionally and Pasadena to see if they're going to be activating their winter shelter, their weather-activated shelter program. But as of right now, I don't have any updates, but I will be happy to look into that. And
So, yeah, and the reason, I'm wondering, so we have 101,000 remaining. Are we able to use that for something like a winter shelter if we needed to?
Councilmember Broadman, $101,000 I don't think would be sufficient to operate something locally. But one thing that we can take a look at is potentially operating a hotel motel type program where we would be able to at least temporarily house our clients, kind of like what we did last year during COVID with Project Room Key, Project Room Key. So with $101,000, I think that type of a project would be more doable because there's less staffing costs, overhead. So if we want to take a look at maybe operating a program similar to Project Home Key, that's certainly something we could look in. I mean, I would assume we could look
Yeah, I would suggest we look at it before we start getting the cold, rainy weather, if we do. And you know, I'm looking at that 101,000 that's not been allocated, and if we have a need, you know, why not deploy it now rather than wait? And related to that is, when I looked at the GYA vouchers, I saw that it's capped at 10 youth. So why are we limiting it to 10? Is there no more need that we've identified? We have the money, right? And have we checked with Glendale College, for instance? I remember, I haven't been teaching for a while, but when I was, I always heard about students sleeping in cars. So I don't know what the situation is now, but I can imagine there's going to be a need beyond 10 youth. And since we have the 101,000, unallocated, is there more we can do in that space?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Broadman, we can definitely look at increasing our numbers. I do want to say that the Glendale Youth Alliance, they are currently receiving funding from our CASH program. There's a state funding that they're also receiving for the hotel motel vouchers. So this is in addition to a program that they're currently operating. However, based on our homeless count in the city of Glendale, unfortunately, we don't see a high need for homeless youth in our city. However, we could certainly look at that and consult with GYA to see if we can potentially increase this amount. They felt that this amount was sufficient at this time with the 10 households, 10 youth. But that is definitely something we can look at. One thing I do want to mention with the HAP funds is these funds can be utilized within the next 5 years. So they don't expire until 2025. So we can certainly plan around and see where there's needs and gaps in our city and where we can best utilize this funding. If there are any other programs, we could certainly look into that. But we do have until 2025 to allocate the HAP funds.
Okay, well, that would be my suggestion, if my colleagues agree, would be to look at if we do have more need, either with the winter shelter situation or with the youth, and that we connect with the folks at Glendale College. I think we have a program that we are running with them, right? Andre, I forget his last name.
Manukian? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it would probably be a great person to talk to about that. All right,
Absolutely.
thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Broadman. Yes, we will look into that.
All right, thank you. Authority Member Ajanian.
Yes, I'm just curious, as a follow-up, looking at the past 3 years, is there any kind of a successful progression in graduating from this program? In other words, have we saved any families from the burden of homelessness into the mainstream society? Can we take account of that success?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Ajanian, yes, we actually have quite a few clients that have been housed, especially through our rapid rehousing program. 5 years ago, when there was some restructuring in our COC, we didn't have a lot of funding secured for rapid rehousing. We had a lot of funding secured for permanent supportive housing programs, but you had to be chronically homeless or disabled in order to qualify for the program. So with this flexible funding that we're now receiving from the state, such as the HAP funds, we are seeing a need in our community to help our newly homeless individuals and families, those who don't typically qualify for our COC programs because they don't meet that chronically homeless definition or that disability requirement. We have been able to successfully house, I know just this past year alone, we've served over 50 families. We can get those numbers for you. We do capture data on all of our families and individuals in our programs through our homeless management information system. So if you would like to see some data and how many people we've been able to successfully house and rehouse, we would be happy to provide you with the report.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Any other comments, questions? Okay, great. Mrs. Stein, thank you very much for this report. And I think that we can trust that you are constantly looking for need in this community to use this funding. And, you've done that in the past, and I'm sure you will continue to do that. And with that, I would entertain a motion.
I will move this item, please.
Thank you.
Is
Thank you,
there a
Madam Mayor.
second? Welcome.
I can say, can I ask a question before we have a roll call? Do I need a second from anybody for staff to follow up on some of the suggestions?
Well, I think I just basically did that for you and made sure that that they would continue to address needs and look into the needs in the community and make sure that if that money can be used, it will be used. Am I correct, Mrs. Sion?
Yes, that
Okay.
is correct, Madam.
That's good. Thank you.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Agajanian,
Yes.
Brotman,
Yes.
Kasakian,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
and Mayor Devine.
Yes, thank you. Thank you all. And the next item, please.
Next would be community development regarding monthly housing subsidy program update and program follow-up. A city council motion to provide direction on the future parameters of the MHSP as deemed necessary.
Thank you. Mr. Galanian?
Yes, Mayor Devine, members of City Council, Housing Chair Kasakian, members of the Housing Authority. Thanks to your foresight and deliberate efforts to help the most vulnerable segment of our community, you established this program, a monthly housing subsidy program, just under 2 years ago at the onset of the pandemic in March of 2020. And it set aside $3.6 million annually each year for 2 years for direct assistance with folks who needed the most, specifically 1,000 extremely low-income disabled senior households in the amount of $300 a month. This program is coming up for its term to expire for those applicants who started receiving the first set of the direct subsidies in March of 2022. It will expire, so staff will be seeking direction on the existing program, or if there are any new programming that you would like to have or see established. With that, I'm going to turn it to Peter Zovak, our Assistant Director of Community Development, for a presentation.
Yes, good afternoon, Mayor Devine, Chair Kasakian, members of the City Council and Housing Authority. The City Council and Housing Authority held a joint meeting back on October 19th, 2021, just short of a month ago, in which you received the update that City Manager Galanian described on the monthly housing subsidy program. The Council and Housing Authority expressed an interest in possibly continuing the program in some format, and the City Council requested 3 alternatives to be brought back to them for further consideration. And I think it's important to note that while more alternatives exist and could be discussed either now or at a later meeting, this report brings back the 3 alternatives that were directed by the City Council for discussion. The City Council initially approved the monthly housing subsidy program as a pilot rental assistance program designed to assist Glendale's most vulnerable population. As stated, it was initially set up to be a maximum 2-year term program. And in referring to the slides, the council wished to be able to enroll and assist 1,000 applicants. The criteria for that was that the applicants must be low income, they must be senior. Those seniors which had a household member that was 75 years of age or older were considered priority. They must be a Glendale resident, they must be disabled. Applicants were to receive $300 a month in subsidy assistance, for a period of 24 months to 2 years. And as previously stated, it was an $8.4 million budget in which the bulk of it represented direct assistance and then some smaller amount annual staffing needed. I think in going further, I think it's important to remember that the life cycle of this program is such that it's kind of like a bell-shaped curve. It takes staffing to begin enrolling applicants, and the enrollment starts at 0 and tends to gain steam as it goes on. And so you'll start to see, as the year goes, you'll start to see enrollment increase, reach a point where you reach your 1,000. And by that time, you start to have some of your initial applicants exit the program, and then you start to see it decrease. But we had said at that, during those hearings last year when the council established the program, it is a 2-year program that will be administered over multiple years because of the staffing necessary and the enrollment process. So just to keep that in mind, while someone's term might end, staffing is still needed for the remaining people. As right now, we're still enrolling people into that initial 1,000. So just as a reminder, we did have that lottery. There were 2,416 applicants entered into the lottery. 1,750 were selected, and we're reaching the end of that 1,750 in terms of enrolling the first 1,000 applicants. We're approaching the end of that, almost ready to exhaust it, but not yet. And as a result, there were 666 applicants that were not selected in the lottery. They were in the lottery, they just were not selected. Only 1,750 were selected. Currently, as of the writing or the presentation today, we have 981 current participants enrolled and approved into the program, with 19 more pending. So we're pretty confident that we'd be able to achieve the 1,000 enrollment utilizing just almost all of the 1,750 initially selected from the lottery. So very little number of people who were selected, not enrolled into the program or qualified for the program, and then certainly no consideration for the 666 not selected, unless that were to change by the council in making some decisions. So,
Can I ask a quick question before we go on, Madam Mayor?
Go ahead, Councilmember Brotman.
Yeah, so how did you decide on 1750? I mean, it seems like you've kind of, you planned it perfectly. If what I'm assuming is that you had that 1750, then you selected the high priorities, you went through and vetted
Right.
them, some of them fell out, and you're ending up at exactly 1,000?
correct. It's a little bit of a luck, but it's a little bit of planning as well. You know, the ratio for people applying to programs, the ratio between acceptance and rejection is about, it tends to be anywhere between, for every 7 applications, you might get 1 approved. Every 10 applications you review, it might be 1 that's approved. So the last thing we wanted to do was have to come back and somehow have a second lottery if we didn't go deep enough in having a waiting list. In this particular case, that 1,750 selected based upon, and I should mention, administering the program, and here, in case there are other questions, is Sipon Zadorian on staff. That 1,750 was a good number, it turns out, in the end.
Okay, so as you've gone through, some people have fallen out because they didn't qualify. You've enrolled people into the program. You're almost at 1,000. There are no more of that 1,750 that are still eligible potentially, but we've already hit our 1,000? Or are there a
Correct.
few?
It might get, because as you see on the right-hand side, you have 981 current applicants. There are 19 applications pending. If those pending applicants come through, you have your 1,000 enrollment. We're probably going to be somewhere in the 10s or 20s from that 1,750 that just did not make it.
Okay, so we're not going to have more than 1,000.
No.
We're going to maybe
No.
have a few spaces left that we can fill under the original budget.
Correct.
Okay, all right.
We didn't have authorization to go over the 1,000, for sure.
Right, I understand that. Okay,
Okay?
thank you.
And so the report lists out the 3 alternatives that City Council directed, and what we've done is we've just converted them into a graphic, just so it's just easier to speak to. So alternative 1 provided by the City Council was to, and the discussion, I should back up and say that the discussion that the council had at that time was that with the 2-year program expiring for the first applicants, would there be a desire to extend that 1 more year, so in fact, making it a 3-year program? So with that in mind, alternative 1 by the City Council was to extend the program term for those initial 1,000 enrolled applicants from 2-year to 3-year, so adding 1 additional year to the 1,000, and considering one of 2 options. Either then dipping into the 666 that were not entered into the lottery and start to process them for consideration and enrolling them, and or from that 666, we did a quick look in the database. There appears to be 100 households that were, at the time that they applied, were not considered priority, but with nearly 2 years passing, they were 73 at the time, they're now 75. There are about 100 households, applicants, that now would meet a priority status. So there's an ability to either extend the 1,000 to 1 additional year and screen all 666, or screen only 100 the priority people designated out of that 666. So that's dealing with a group of people and screening them that have already applied but did not have assistance through the lottery process. Alternative 2 is to go ahead and sunset the 1,000 households, stick to the 2-year program mandate, and then look at dipping into the 666. And that's either going to the 100 priority within that 666, or go ahead and screening all 666 applicants. And I'll add, and I'll kind of piggyback on what Councilman Brotman brought up. Our intent would also be to include who is ever remaining on that 1,750. We wouldn't just bypass them because it's such a small number we anticipate it to be. We wouldn't bypass them and go directly to the 666. We'd add them, but it's a small number for the purposes of this discussion. And then alternative 3 was to go ahead and just sunset the program. And that's what the direction that was provided by the City Council to take a look at. So we've provided those 3 options. And as we had discussed at that time, there are implications to those options. And they're listed out here in this report, in this PowerPoint. They include commitments that go beyond what council has already committed to the MHSP program. So if there were a desire to go with alternative 1, option A, which is to go ahead and screen and try and enroll all 666 applicants that remain, and enroll them on a 3-year installment, as well as extending the current applicants to an additional year to make it 3 years, it would be a total $11.7 million commitment to that. And just as a reminder that this program is funded out of the Measure S revenue stream. Option B would only be looking at those priority people that exist within the 666. That reduces your costs, and that's down to a $5.6 million estimated cost. And the 11.7 million, the 666, that's just worst case scenario or best case scenario in that all 666 qualify. That's assuming no one is screened out. And so it's a overall maximum commitment of 11.7. Same thing for the 100 priority people. It's a maximum of $5.6 million, assuming they all qualify. Alternative 2 would come at a cost that ranges anywhere between $1.3 to $5.4 million. And then alternative 3, which would be just to sunset the program, would just be 1 additional year of staffing to sunset those people. Because as I said, we are still enrolling people right now as we speak. And so those people that are enrolled now would be eligible and receiving assistance on the program for 2 years from today. That requires staffing to go ahead and go through the monitoring process and making sure that they continue to qualify over time. And so that alternative 3 is simply the staffing cost that needs to be budgeted in the upcoming budget session for that additional year of staff requirement.
Okay, Peter, may I ask you a question, please?
Sure.
These totals for funding on the right side of the chart, are these in addition to the 8.4 million original cost?
It is.
Or is the 8.4 included in that?
No, it's in addition to the 8.4 cost. So it's brand new cost beyond the 8.4 million. That 8.4 million, the bulk of that was direct assistance and then 2 years of staffing only.
And Madam Mayor, if I could add that the $8 million, $8.4 million, that has been appropriated. This would be in addition. The last alternative, and the council had wanted to include that, gives you the option then to look at this in the context of the budget. With all the other obligations and interests that you might have, it isn't merely sunsetting, but you can sunset and look forward to a discussion, a larger discussion in the context of the full budget. And I think that applied, there was comments, that applies if you wanted to sunset the original number. Right now, you could talk about it at budget and bring that back in July. That same group.
Okay, Peter, are you, have you completed your report?
I have.
Okay, all right, let me ask my colleagues for their questions,
Yes.
concerns.
Madam Mayor.
Councilmember,
Question.
Ms. Parazian, go ahead, Authority Member Parazian.
Okay. I have question for Peter. Peter, I have two couples just in one household. One of the couples is less than 76. The other end is 75 is plus. And in the other household, two couples, one of them both are disabled, but one of them are less than 75, let's say 65. Which household gets the preference?
I'm sorry, I couldn't clearly hear the two scenarios that you provided. Can you
Okay.
I think
in one
agent-
household, the both are 75 plus,
Okay.
but one of them is not disabled, and in the second household, both are 75 and plus, but one of them one is 75 plus, and the other one is 65, let's say, but both are disabled. Which household gets the preference?
They would both get the priority. You have one member of the house, in both scenarios you described, you have one member of the household who is 75 or older, and at least one member of the household who is disabled.
So they would both get the same
Okay.
preference,
Consideration, yes, on the priority basis.
consideration, right?
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Agajanian, I think I heard your voice.
I would like to offer an alternative to this, what has been presented for the future, to go with the alternative one, but with some changes. The change to extend the program for those who receive the money for another year, and add to it the 666 unselected ones to go through that list, and but for 1 year. I mean, the new group also will get it for 1 year, not 2 years. So 1 year for those 600.
Councilmember Agajanian, did you
Yes.
read my notes? Because that was exactly what I was going to suggest.
Okay, that's
So
great
let's
then.
find out let's
Yeah.
find out if it's doable.
Okay, I'm glad that you are seconding it. Anyway, so I would like to extend those who received for 2 years and not to get it for another year, and those who did not get it, to get it for 1 year, not to 2 years. And then later, next year, all these groups will be there. Whether we want to extend it, we will decide it next year. So
Yep.
the entire group will come to the end of their program.
So if I can just repeat that back.
Yes, please, go ahead.
There's one proposal to extend the 1,000 two-year recipients and make it 3 years of assistance. And then to look at all remaining people, that's remaining people on 1750 list and the 666,
Right.
screen them and process them and offer them the subsidy. And for that one particular group, their assistance is only 1 year.
That's right. That
And then we can revisit in a year and see if how we want to progress with the program.
right. And in my estimation, that's going to cost approximately a little bit more than 6 million. The way I calculate. Anyway.
And while you're running the numbers, can I ask a question to my colleague?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes, go ahead.
Can you just go through a little bit more the rationale? Because I hear what your proposal is, and I just want to hear a little bit more how you arrived at that and why.
Okay. The reason being is everything is more expensive now. And these people are paying 7%. the rent goes higher because everything became more expensive. With 7%, the rent went higher, and the inflation. What they were able to buy a year or in 2019, we have decided this. Of course, it took such a long time until we select this group. But by the time they received it, it was 2020. So during the 2020, as you know, and especially this year, inflation is 6.2%, and everything is more expensive. So maybe this money will help them to be situated such that they were in 2019. That's the reason.
Okay, I was thinking more about why the 1 year for the new group. Why 1 year as opposed to 3 years? That was
So-
really my question.
Then all those people together, we will decide whether we want to extend it or not. Otherwise, the first group, we're going to have 1 year, and this group, they're going to have 2 years. Then we have to decide for each one separately. But if the term comes to the end at the same time, so we will decide for the whole group at once.
Okay, but they'll always be staggered because as we bring the new ones on,
That's right.
it's going to take, it may take a whole year to bring all the new ones on, right?
That's right, it's
I mean,
possible, but you're deciding for the group that whether they're getting 1 year or 2 years, so will be entire
Okay.
group, irrespective of when their term will come for extension.
Okay.
That was my reason, anyway.
Okay.
I have a
Thank you.
question.
Councilmember Najarian.
So, Mr. Zovak, have you ever experienced any problems with the recipients being concerned that this somehow would diminish any of their other benefits from state or federal in terms of general relief or anything? Will this count as is this counted as income to them that may knock them out or bring them to a lower amount of monthly, whether it's disability insurance or whether it's, SSI or any other sort of county, state, or federal relief?
Yes, when we were first having this discussion of setting up this program, we did consult with a number of different other agencies, as well as other cities that are administering programs to find out exactly those types of possible negative impacts. We also had discussions with Social Security and things along those lines. And the way that the assistance was being proposed and set up, at that time they had stated that it wouldn't have a negative impact on assistance that applicants typically receive from other agencies. And now here we are, almost 2 years into the
Was that
program.
would?
Would not. Would not impact assistance being received. Certainly they'd be looked at by those other agencies, and actually staff has received calls from other agencies asking for more information. But to date, we have not learned of anyone being negatively impacted by receiving the assistance.
I would support that.
Thank you.
I would too. Sure. I would as well.
Councilmember Kasakian
I-
or
I
Ajemian?
just said that I would support Member Agajanian's suggestion as well.
Oh, okay, great. I'd second that one. Okay, Ajemian, anything? Authority?
Yeah, I just want to know, Peter, currently, is there any reevaluation period?
There's an annual reevaluation period on applicants.
Madam Mayor, may I make one comment?
Yes,
Yeah.
Councilmember Brock. Go
So
ahead.
I can support this as well. I think it's a good approach. The only thing I would say, and this maybe is the plan, is that we don't wait a year to kind of reconsider this, that we take it up in this next budget discussion. So that, because what's happening here is we're getting to this weird point where some people are starting to fall off of the program, and yet we're not in our normal budget discussion time period. So as long as, if we kind of commit to maybe kind of firming this up in our next discussion of Measure S allocations, that would be good.
Mr. Zovak, I noticed that in the staff report, you did say that you feel it's more appropriate to be considered a budget deliberation in a more comprehensive setting. Do you agree with Mr. Brotman, Councilmember Brotman?
I do think that there's some value, and certainly the finance budget team would argue, I would think, that having a complete picture of the Measure S revenue stream and other programs and possible priorities, it might be better to have a discussion of this program at the same time that you have a discussion of some of those other programs. And I see the value in that. I know that the budget session will start after the new year. But at the same time, we have some people that are scheduled to exit and complete their 2 years beginning in March. If there is a commitment by the city council that this is the direction they want, to extend it out, what we do is we know how many people are going to complete in March. We know how many people will complete in April, May, and June. And we know the cost for that. We also know that we have some savings. So we could pay for beginning their 3rd year while the complete budget discussion takes place, and then the total allocation and adoption of the reservation of funding is done at that time. If that addresses what you were bringing up, Councilmember Brotman,
Well, yeah, kind of, because I know we're facing this issue right now with
Right.
some people kind of coming to the end of their 2-year term, and it's not syncing up with our budget discussion. So I wasn't necessarily saying we should hold off, but it's not a bad idea either. I don't feel strongly one way or another, as long as we don't let people kind of terminate out of the program and then have to bring them back if we decide to continue. I would want to avoid that. And I think what you're saying is we could avoid that by just taking care of that subset, carrying them over until we're able to make a fuller, longer-term decision in light of, I mean, I think that's not a bad idea, and I would support doing that as well.
and I can tell you, the rough estimation right now of this alternative is approximately $6.3 million. And I would want to go back to the office and double-check the numbers, but that's the roundabout number that would be looking to commit from future Measure S money for next year would be about 6.3 if this proposal is something that the council agrees upon.
Is that in addition, again, Mr. Zovak, to the 8.4, or is this a complete?
It's a whole separate obligation that would have to
Okay.
be appropriated.
Okay. All right, thank you. I think Councilmember Brotman, did he answer your question?
Yeah, and I guess I would just say, I think that, I would support, when it comes to the next discussion of Measure S money, I'm likely, to support extending this, but I think it is kind of a smart idea for us, as staff is suggesting, to just kind of put a little Band-Aid on this, carry us over,
Right.
and then have a fuller discussion. I think that would be a wiser approach for this council than just jumping to a decision right now that involves, a fairly significant sum of money.
And
Madam Mayor.
Yes, Councilmember Agajanian?
No, but we have to remember the money which allocated in the first pool, or first time, was we started, some of the recipients, they received the first money only a few months ago, right? From the first group. They just received it a few months ago. So money is in there, so we can borrow from that and pay them, and then later return the money next year when we are discussing the budget. I don't think there is a money problem, right? The way I understand.
there's not a money problem just to handle a few applicants, and the applicants we have scheduled in March, April, and May, no.
Yeah.
But
So
there would be,
My point is that the money is not exhausted yet. The 8.4 million which was allocated is not exhausted.
correct.
So that's why by the time you get new group in, so we're going to have money to borrow and pay the new group until
Right.
the other money comes in.
Mr. Agajanian, I think what you're saying is that we could cash flow those people until you get to budget, and then you could replenish the
Right.
program. And really what you're deciding today is to fund for 1 year about 2,500 households. The original 1,750 plus 666.
Right.
Madam Mayor, if I may, I was
Yes.
also going to make a clarification, although, like Mr. Zovak mentioned, the budget review process starts sometimes in March, typically, that's when the budget season starts. The budget itself won't get adopted until the first or second week in June, and it won't go into effect until July 1st of 2022.
Right, but we are not in trouble as far as the money is concerned.
I think what Councilmember Agajanian is saying, if I may, is the fact that we don't spend the full 8.4 million right off the bat. It kind of goes out as we pick up households to fund. Am I
Right.
correct?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's what I say.
And if I may, then, you're making that statement because you would like staff, then, once they're done with 1,000, to continue without stopping and waiting for budget discussions.
Right.
To continue, start to qualifying the remaining 666.
That's what I mean. That's right, exactly.
Well, I think that my idea or my thought is that that we should consider this in our budget. That I think staff is on the right track. Financially, I think we have to remain fiscally responsible and make sure that what we're doing is within our budget. And you know, when this first program was suggested, it was a pilot program. And I think now we're at the point where we're considering whether the program should continue in perpetuity or do, you know, and this way, if we revisit it on a yearly basis, we can continue. I know that I asked Mr. Zovak to check with Santa Monica because this is where the idea came from. And they have this exact kind of a similar program. I don't know that they're funding as many households with this much money, but they are, Mr. Zovak, correct me if I'm wrong, they are continuing the program and thinking of upping the funding, correct?
They are actually, their pilot program is now a permanent program, is the way they described it, and they're actually enlarging their enrollment, so they're adding new households to their program.
Yeah, so it's a successful program. It's helping a lot of people. So with that, I think we're ready for a motion on Councilmember Agajanian's suggestion, and I would like to add that we put this in our budget conversations as well, as Mr. Brotman has suggested.
No, but my suggestion was that we will consider now that staff can go and get the group, the rest of them, 666 people, to see if they are eligible, and whenever we are ready to start paying them, not to wait until next year, July. Because if we want to wait for next budget to be approved, will be next July. So they have to start now, use the same money which has not been exhausted from the past, and start this process now. That was my suggestion, I guess, and it was seconded.
Mr. Agajanian, if we could just clarify, you want to commit to another year for the original recipients and commit to a year for the 666.
Right.
We'll have to put that money in you're deciding now, we'll put that money in at budget time. If you want to expand beyond that, that's a discussion you can have at the budget.
All right, so if you can manage it, then I'm okay.
So a reservation is being made for approximately $6.3 million now that would be discussed and presented for final adoption at budget time.
Okay.
But in the meantime, use excess proceeds to continue because the action today is that this is going through.
Yes.
So a very worst-case scenario would be dire financial times at budget. There might be a need to reconsider this approval Just know that there might be some financial repercussions to then back out of it.
I'm okay with it, but
Yeah, yeah, I am too. So we have a motion on the floor. Do we have the motion? And is there a second?
I second it.
We can have,
It has to be, it has to be council.
It has to be council, Madam Mayor.
right. Oh, it has to be council, Mr. Arginian. Is there a second on council?
Second.
Okay, we have a second. Can we have roll call, please?
Councilmember Agajanian,
yes.
Brotman,
Yes.
Kasakian,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Mayor Devine.
Yes. And the next item?
Next item would be community development regarding consideration to execute a public benefit agreement with CSCDA Community Improvement Authority for the acquisition of 1717 North Verdugo Road. Housing Authority resolution authorizing the executive director to execute a public benefit agreement with CSCDA Community Improvement Authority for the acquisition of 1717 North Verdugo Road. And B, City Council motion to accept and file report.
Thank you. Mr. Galanian?
Yes, Mayor Devine, members, City Council, Housing Chair Kasakian, members of the Housing Authority. CSCDA is one of the two state authorities that enter into joint ventures to acquire market rate multifamily rental buildings and convert them to workforce housing. I believe this is the third property that they have acquired two already, but this is the third property that they're interested in. Should you decide to move forward with this plan, we're seeking authority for the executive director, me, to execute the public benefit agreement if you so choose to. And with that, I'm going to turn it to Mike Fortney, our Principal Housing Project Manager, for the presentation on this item.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor Devine, City Council members. Housing Authority Chair Kasakian, Housing Authority Board members. I'm Mike Fortney, Principal Housing Product Manager. So the site we're talking about today is 1717 North Verdugo Road. Just a basic description of the project. It's a developed apartment building. It's got 8 separate buildings, 126 rental units. It's a large site, almost 3 acres, 127,631 square feet. Agreed upon price between the owner now and CIA is $83 million. Here's a map showing the location. It's just south of Verdugo Woodlands Elementary School. It's north of the Glendale Community College, and it is just east of the Verdugo Park. This one here, it's a little bit hard to see the outline of the building, but it's circled around. It's the 8 buildings that you can see there in the center of the screen, with the wash just to the north and Verdugo Road just to the south. So currently the unit mix, we have large units, only a couple of 1-bedrooms, averaging 714 square feet. You have quite a number of 2-bedrooms, 51 of them at 980 square feet. The 3-bedrooms, there's 65 of those at an average of 1,240 square feet, so they're very large. And then you have 8 units of 4-bedroom, which is pretty rare to find in Glendale, and those average 1,460 square feet. The rent decrease from market rate, not a big decrease on the 1-bedrooms, only a 3% decrease initially, about $60 per month. 2-bedrooms, you see that's almost a 10% decrease in the rent per month right off the bat. 3-bedrooms, it's even more substantial, at 12.25%, we'll call it, $450 roughly per month that the tenants would see in a rent reduction, and then about a $400 a month reduction in rents on those 4-bedrooms. So the weighted average of all of those, though, is in excess of 10%, almost 11% rent increase initially. And then just to make the point, there is on the CSCDA as well as the Cal CHA Workforce Housing Program, there's a 4% cap on rent increases. So over time, these workforce rents will be lower than market rate rents, because market rate rents can increase by 5% annual plus CPI versus just a 4% cap on the workforce projects. So before you now is, we're basically asking for your authorization to let the executive director of the Housing Authority execute the public benefit agreement. Like the public benefit agreements and the purchase option agreements, if we went with Cal CHA, it allows the city or housing authority to exercise this right beginning in year 15 to acquire the asset at the price equal to the outstanding debt. The bonds are issued for 30 years. So predictably, and if things go right, in 30 years, those bonds will be expired. And if the city wished to exercise this option in that year, it would be able to acquire that site at basically transactional cost. We put up here 15-year estimate for the property tax loss and net value to the city at 15 years, as well as the 30-year loss in property tax revenue to the city versus the net value to the city after 30 years. So we're looking at about $1.6 million in property tax loss through year 15, but a potential net value to the city of $17.1 million. If we waited 30 years to exercise our option, we would lose $3.73 million roughly in property tax loss, but could potentially gain a $128 million asset. And that's based on the current property taxes of $92,000 annual plus a 2% growth. This one is a little bit different in respect to the other four projects. The executive director mentioned Cal CHA, or I apologize, CSCDA has acquired 2 properties already in Glendale. Cal CHA, the other JPA that we joined for workforce housing, has also acquired 2. This is a little bit different. It's not a Class A market rate rental property like the 4 that have been acquired before. This property was built, I believe, back in 1965, although it did undergo some substantial rehabilitation more recently. But what also makes this a little bit different, well, the location also makes it different, but what makes it also different is it went through a condominium conversion when it did the rehab a few years ago. So we have all the options that we have with the other workforce housing projects in the city, but we also have the option beginning in year 15 all the way through year 30 of selling these units individually if we chose to do so, rather than sell the entire building. Because they're already condominiumized, we could sell each unit off to first-time home buyers qualifying for whatever income targeting we wanted. It's just one more option we have on this building that we don't have on the previous 4 workforce housing acquisitions. So with that, next steps, if the city were to approve the public benefit agreement, I should say actually the executive director of the Housing Authority, CSCDA, CIA, and its partner on this, Boulevard Capital. They would continue, of course, to do their due diligence, which they've been doing for some time. They would shoot for a bond issuance of mid-January, so roughly January 13th, and it would target a property close date of January 20th of next year, and acquire this site. So with that, I'm done with my presentation, but I'm more than happy to answer, or try to answer any questions you may have.
Mayor?
Sorry, Jane, go ahead. I don't know if Mayor Devine can hear us. Mayor, are you there?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Madam Mayor?
Madam Mayor, you're muted again.
Now you're muted.
Again,
You were fine, you're fine. No,
Madam Mayor,
You're
can you hear
muted
me?
now.
I can hear you.
Okay.
Oh, now
All
it's
right,
good.
can I
go ahead.
All right, Madam Mayor, I think this is a great project. I know when you look at it, 1-bedroom apartment at this time will be, whoever gonna rent it will be $60 less than the market value. But during the period of time, the difference gonna be such a great amount, because 4% increase will not amount to anything. So I think those who are going to reside in this building will be very happy with this, what they provided or we provided to the residents of Glendale. With that, I would like to move the item.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember Kasakian.
Sure, thank you. I do agree that, this is a good purchase, a good idea based on the location, its proximity to Glendale Community College and the people that work with the college and up there in that part of the city that could benefit from it. The prices, still, I know are a little, I certainly raised my eyebrows, but maybe I'm a little less familiar with the market. It just feels that even with the discounted rates, to call it workforce housing, it feels as though we're bailing water out of a sinking ship with a measuring spoon, but it is what the state has authorized in terms of their efforts to provide what they believe is workforce housing and slightly below market rates in a very impacted region of the state here in Los Angeles. So in that regard, I think we ought to do the right thing by moving forward with this, especially with the benefit that we may receive at the end. And the good news is it's not in the core of the downtown where we had a lot of purchases very quickly that caught us a little by surprise. So I think that this is good, and I would second it for, I believe there's two motions that we have to make. One is a resolution by the Housing Authority, and the other is a motion to accept and file the report. I'll make the motion for City Council, and I'll wait for someone to second it for the Housing Authority.
Okay, I second it for the other one.
And any other comments?
I have some comments.
I have a question. Did I hear someone say I have a comment?
Najarian does.
Councilmember Najarian.
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
So I'm not very thrilled with this agency, despite their claimed purpose to provide affordable housing throughout the state. I'm not happy with the way they came into Glendale several months ago and snatched up some of the Class A properties without council essentially knowing about it. Strike one for me. Strike two, I think this is going to take market housing off the market. Those people that are now complaining about high rates of rentals are not going to see their situation improve, because going forward, this project with 126 market rate units are going to be taken off the market, placing greater pressure on the remaining markets, the remaining units throughout the city. And I think that's simple supply and demand. Number two, I don't know these people. How do we know the ability that they have to manage this building? Well, they're the state of California. How well did they manage the properties along Meridian in South Pasadena when the state was in charge of managing properties? They did a terrible job. So I don't know who they are. We have no idea how well they manage. We have no idea what company they hire to manage. We don't know any of that. Yet we're jumping in headlong into this under the guise of it's providing workforce housing. I would say let's see how they handle the Altana, the Brio, the Next on Lex, and the what's it called? The Triangle? The Link. So, I think as a city, we owe a certain amount of due diligence. We don't even know what company they're going to pick. For us to look and do some basic research and see what sort of experience does their proposed manager have. Next, we look to, in 30 years, we're going to get these properties. In 30 years, these are going to be tired, dilapidated assets. The buildings are already tired. In 30 years, it's not like we're going to take over the Altana, not like the Link, not like Next on Lex, not like Brio, which are all new buildings and Class A buildings, built, I think, to a certain higher level of quality than this particular building has. So I'm up to strike 4. Strike 5, we are going to lose property tax on this. And of course, staff has said, look how much we're going to lose. And it might not look like a big amount, but that totally disregards the possibility of that property being sold. Every time that property is sold, it is reevaluated and reassessed. So to tell us that in 30 years it's only going to be 3.73, there should be a big asterisk next to that, with the assumption that that it would not otherwise be sold. Correct?
That is correct
Correct.
point.
Okay, so we don't have that information. So don't look at 3.7 and say, oh, it's only 3.7. That could be literally in the tens of millions of dollars if this property changes hands several times, and each time it's reassessed. What strike am I on? I'm on strike 5. The next is, you're looking at these rents and you're saying, oh, in just a few years, at only a 4% increase, it's going to be the gap between market rental rates that are increasing at 7% under the Glendale guidelines, side by side with this property, which is only going to increase a maximum of 4%. Well, I think it's clear that not every Glendale property in the market is raising its rents by 7% each year. So don't assume that gap between the market and this affordable is going to continue to get wider. It may not get wider, it might even get smaller. I know a huge number of property owners that do not increase their rents 7% every year, yet this property appears to have committed to a 4% increase each year. These are 6 reasons why we should stay away from this deal and just bide our time. We're working like gangbusters on affordable housing throughout this city. It's not like we're going to be accused of sitting on our laurels and not doing anything. Let's just sit back and see how this great state-run program actually works. I think we owe that to our residents, both those seeking market rate and those seeking workforce housing. So that's my position.
Madam
Thank you,
Mayor?
Councilmember Najarian. Councilmember Brotman?
Yeah, so I guess we'll agree to disagree. I really think this is a great project, and I like I like this model from Cal CHA and CSCDA. I might just address a few points. First of all, the 4% increase is a cap. It doesn't mean it's going to increase 4%. The increases would be tied to increases in area median income. So if area median income is falling, the rents will fall. If area median income is flat, the rents will be flat. What this is saying is that if area median incomes are rising rapidly, rents will not increase by any more than 4% in any year. So just want to set the record straight on that. The other thing I would say about taking market rate housing off the market is, in theory that's true, but if you look at our last RHNA cycle we just went through, we, see if my numbers are right, I think we were given a RHNA number of 2007?
13,000, over
13,000.
Yeah, cycle 5. No, the last one, the one we just finished.
Yeah.
Let's say 2,000.
along
It was a little more than 2,000. And we ended up building something close to 4,000. So we almost doubled it. But I would venture to say 90% of that was market rate. I mean, it was almost all market rate is the point I'm trying to make. I don't know if it was 90, but it was almost all market rate. So we did really well on the big number, but we didn't do well if you look at affordable and moderate. And what that says is that the market left to its own devices will build market rate housing. That's the easier housing to build. What's harder to bring to market is workforce housing and affordable housing. And those require subsidies. And if we look what we're paying per unit when we build affordable housing, we're paying substantial amounts per unit in these affordable housing projects. This is a very low cost to Glendale if you divide the property tax loss, whatever it may be, by the number of units. It's going to be a very low cost for us to deliver a type of housing that the market is not building. So I think those are reasons why I like it. I also think that those projections for the value of these properties 30 years out does assume the depreciation of the buildings. I'm assuming that those numbers were not just.
That does include that,
Yeah,
yes.
so they're looking at the fact that, yes, these are old buildings, but the land has value, and at least the first four are, that were in downtown that you mentioned, those are new buildings, so those are gonna carry their value, pretty well. So, I don't know, I understand my colleagues' concerns, and we've heard them before, and but I don't share them, and I think this is a good project. And the only thing, I do have a question as to whether there's anything we can do, and this might have come up before, with GCC, with Glendale College. Is there a way where we can kind of create some kind of a preference program for employees of Glendale College? They have a lot of classified staff and probably adjuncts who may qualify for this type of income level, and to be able to have people that work at the college live so close, that also helps with vehicle miles traveled. It helps with a lot of things that we care about here. So if there is a way to create some kind of a nexus there, that would be something I'd be interested in seeing. But otherwise, I support this wholeheartedly.
Okay, well, I just want to add that there's also a Woodlands Elementary, is it, right next door?
True.
So there will be teachers there that you might want to think about giving
That's a very good-
preferential treatment to as well. I just want to make sure that that no one's going to be displaced. Again, that's my major concern, is that once we turn this over to them, those that have leases will continue, and maybe some of them will even qualify for the workforce housing.
Mayor, this is Mike Ford again, Principal Manager. Yes, you're right. None of the leases will be terminated, and everyone that leases will be offered to continue to lease at the market rate rents. And yes, 30 to 40% has been what we've seen so far of the tenants that are already there, that are paying the market rate rents, that actually do qualify for the workforce. They'll see a reduction in their rents and be able to stay in place. So there's no displacement with the program.
Okay, that's good. Then I am I'm in favor of going ahead with this acquisition of North Verdugo. So if there's a motion, I'll entertain a motion from council
Yes.
or housing. Mr. Councilmember Kasakian, do you want to do the
yes.
housing resolution?
We need the resolution for housing. Is there a motion?
Okay, I'll
Yes,
move.
I move the item for
Well,
housing. Maybe six.
Either way, you want to move everything for housing?
Yes.
Okay, then I'll second that.
All right. Thank you. May we have a roll call?
Authority Member Ajinian,
Yes.
Agajanian,
Yes.
Brotman,
Yes.
Divine,
Yes.
Najarian,
No.
Parazian,
Yes.
Chair Kasakian.
Yes.
I move the
Okay.
item for city council, please.
Yes, the motion to accept and file. We
Second.
have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Councilmember Agajanian,
Yes.
Brotman,
Yes.
Kasakian,
Yes.
Najarian,
No.
Mayor Devine.
Yes. Thank you very much. And what's next, please?
Adjournments for council and housing authority.
May I
Okay, can I have a motion for adjournment for council,
move
please?
to adjourn?
Second for council. Do we have one for housing authority?
Move to adjourn for housing.
Second.
Thank you.
Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you. Housing